A very good afternoon to all the students of class 12. Well, today I'm going to take on the chapter Evans Tries an O-Level, written by Colin Dexter. Okay, and his full name is Normal Colin Dexter, was born on September 29, 1930 in Stamford, Lincolnshire, England. This story, Evans Tries an O-Level, it is an engrossing story. Engrossing means it holds your interest right till the end. And where the writer Colin Dexter, he arouses the reader's curiosity and he sustains it throughout the narration. And the whole story, highlights that this, is a battle of wits, intelligence, between the criminal and the jail authorities. And despite the best efforts of the jail authorities, they are not able to stop Evans from breaking away from the jail. Okay, and Evans has the last laugh. Have the last laugh means that he won in the end, and the police and the jail authorities, they had to face a lot of humiliation. Okay. And because he escaped right under their nose, in fact, he took help from them to clear himself out from the jail premises. Okay, and he's escorted by the prison, one of the prison officials. Okay, now this story we have three main characters here that are there in the jail premises. One is the governor, and he is the governor of the Oxford prison. Okay. And then he has two officials along with him. The senior official is Mr. Jackson, and then there is a new recruit who's known as Mr. Stephens. So Mr. Jackson and Stephens are there to, supervise the whole process of the examination, the German O-level examination that Evans is taking. And they were guarding, and they tried to, keep an eye on everything that was happening, second to second, in fact, peeping through keyholes, and trying to keep watch of everything that's happening inside. Then there is another main character in the lesson, in the story, the invigilator who comes to take the exam. Now, this invigilator is not the real invigilator who was appointed by the governor and the jail authorities. The actual invigilator was a parson. Parson is a clergyman. Clergyman means the officials who do religious duties, especially in the Christian church. So in simple words, we can say a kind of a priest. Okay, and he was the actual invigilator. But what happened, because Evans had, he had his plan well sorted out, and it was a well-planned conspiracy to escape. So he had many people involved in this whole process. So one of his friends had gone to this parson's house, and he had tied the actual parson and gagged him. Gagged him is, when you stuff the mouth with a piece of cloth or something so that no sound comes out, So he was tied and he was gagged and he was left there. And then this friend of Evans, he came as the invigilator. And when he comes to take the examination, then, they carry out the actual inspection, that he's frisked and his stuff is all checked so that, no such thing goes inside which can cause any harm to either the people or the invigilator, or something that Evans could use against the people and try to escape, like any sharp object or anything like that. So this parson, who was actually an accomplice, now you must know this word and use it also. Accomplice is a person who's a partner in crime, so this new parson, he was basically not the genuine parson, and he came in and dressed as the actual parson. So when they open up his bag and his stuff, they find various things. There's the many things that were there, And one strange thing that they found was a little inflated rubber tube. Inflated means that, it has been blown into, not deflated, but inflated rubber tube. All right, so this rubber tube, inflated rubber tube, a ring, it was in the form of a circle, a ring, and on being questioned, McLeary, who's this person who has come in, he gives the explanation that he's suffering from piles, and in order to sit for a very long time, he needs the rubber ring because it helps him in easing out if he has to sit for a long time. So both the prison officers, they feel satisfied, and then they allow him to go into the cell, okay? And he has his Bible, he has his papers, and various other normal things, okay? Now, before they actually come into before the examination actually began, this governor of the Oxford prison, he calls up the secretary of the examination board on telephone in the month of March. The examination is sometimes in June, okay, on June 8. But long before that, in March only, he confirms about the whole process and the viability of this prisoner taking this exam, because that was his right. If he wanted to better his prospects, nobody could stop him from sitting for an exam. So his German classes had, had begun, and nobody could actually take away that right from him. So the governor had called up the secretary of examination, and he'd asked him the details about the examination, sorry. And the secretary also asked for various details about the examinee, that is Evans, and why he wanted to know what kind of a person he was, whether he was a violent kind of a person, because he was actually in prison for a very long time, and he was basically a kleptomaniac. A kleptomaniac is a person who just picks up things, by compulsion. So that kind of thing. So he wanted to know what kind of a person he was, to foresee that, what kind of arrangements could be made if the person was that kind. So the governor then had informed him that there was nothing of this sort, and he was not a violent kind of a person, and he is intelligent, and he was actually called Evans the Break. Evans the Break, why? Because thrice he had tried to run away from the prison, escape from prison thrice. And now he had been lodged in Oxford prison, and he had started attending his classes after that. But, the teacher did not have a very, very high opinion about him clearing the exam, because he makes a statement in between when he says that he had hardly any chance of getting through. But Evans at that time had given a very, ironical answer, and he said that maybe that he may surprise everybody. Now, why did I say ironical answer? Because yes, he did surprise everybody in the end, because there was nothing about qualifying the exam or passing, but he had surprised everybody by running away, because he had devised a great plan which the authorities or the police officials could not even dream about, So on the day of the examination, that was many months later, that is in June, in the morning at 8:30 a.m., these two prison officers, they looked very sharp, and this Mr. Jackson, who was the senior officer, he is well aware of the fact that Evans has a great innovative mind and innovative skills, and in fact, he also calls him the little Einstein. Now, these first short questions are very, very important. Why did Jackson call him a little Einstein? Because he was very intelligent and very sharp, and he was very innovative, So he used to call him little Einstein. And there's a phrase that has been used for them, that Jackson and Evans, they had almost become warm enemies. Now this is used as an oxymoron, because enemies and warm enemies, enemies can't be warm, but still, I mean, Jackson did have a little soft corner for him. So that phrase which has been used for them, warm enemies, okay? And he wanted to see that no sharp object is left in the cell, so that Evans could injure himself, or, so he advises, Stephens to be very, very careful. Now, on this particular day, when Jackson had come on around, Evans had actually, he had put on, or he was wearing a red and white bobble hat, okay? And it was not a very nice hat, so Jackson just told him that he should remove it. But Evans, as he was very quick-witted, and he immediately said that the hat was his lucky charm, and since he was going to sit for an exam, he wanted to wear it, okay? Now, and Jackson, since he had a little soft corner for him, or he thought maybe, because he's sitting for an exam, so he actually believed in it being a lucky charm, he did not force him, to take it off or to just keep it away. And that was one of the biggest mistakes that was made by him. Why? Because if he had asked him to take off the hat, he would have noticed that Evans had actually, hacked his hair or chopped off his hair very, very short. And he had long hair, and he had chopped them off in a very crude manner. And, and it was very, very obvious. So if he would have noticed, naturally he would have got suspicious, or he would have taken, more authentic steps to watch the proceedings and, to actually be very, very careful. But that was a big blunder that he committed, okay? And he let him wear that hat, okay? Now, at that point of time, Evans was also shaving himself, so Stephen makes preparations for the conduct of the examination in the cell, okay, in Evans' cell only. And 2 chairs are brought and they are placed before the table near the cell door. Then Jackson makes a final appearance and to advise Evans, and he asks him that, behave yourself, laddie. Laddie is used for a boy. Okay, like lad and lassie. Lad is used for a boy and lassie for a girl. Okay, so he asks him to, warns him to behave himself. Then Evans shows surprise on noticing that his cell has been bugged. Now what is bugged? Now this is, bugged is when a small, a miniature microphone has been fixed up inside the cell, so that any conversation that takes place inside can be heard outside, or sometimes if you want to record somebody talking inside the room, so it also gets recorded and it can be heard. So that is why he's a little surprised that his cell has been bugged. But Jackson tells him that all these are the governor's instructions and they had to comply with his orders, okay? And because they did not want to take any chance with Evans, because he was a master planner. So here we can also see that these officials, they cannot stop themselves from admiring his ingenuity and his mastermind when he works out on these plans, okay? And then they told him that the governor himself would be listening to all conversation that's carried on in the cell. Then when the exam begins, when McLeary comes in and all his stuff is checked and he gives the necessary instructions to the candidate regarding writing down the paper's name and the index number and the center number 313, 271 and all those, that's important, okay? Now, till this stage, Stephens is in the cell, but Evans, then he objects that he cannot write his exam and he cannot, answer if he finds that Stephens is going to stand on his head like that and, make his presence felt in the cell. So Jackson again, has a little soft corner, so he calls him out. And the examination starts at about 9:25 a.m. Now at 9:40 a.m., the Assistant Secretary for Modern Languages informs the governor about an oversight regarding a correction slip and the necessity of informing the candidate about it. Okay. Now this first phone call that comes about the correction slip. So now the phone call, obviously when we finish reading the chapter, we realize that this is a hoax call. Okay, it is a hoax call because this was a well planned and there were many people involved in the escape of Evans. Then, despite taking all required precautions, the governor allows the assistant secretary to do the needful, and Evans is told about the corrections on page 3, line 15 by McCleary, and Stephens is alert as ever, and he keeps peeping through the keyhole, but he finds everything in order. Then at about 10:50 a.m., Evans requests to be allowed to put a blanket on top of him, and it did sound a little suspicious, but then they thought that the cell was very, very cold and maybe Evans is actually feeling cold, so the request was granted. Now the reason for this was because when McCleary, the person, the fraud, actually the imposter, when he comes in, he's wearing two sets of clothes, and over there, because later on according to the plan, so that one set of clothes had to be he had to take it off and he had to give it to Evans to wear it. So with the help of the blanket they managed to do that, and then there were many other phone calls that came in between to divert the attention of the police officials who were guarding and keeping a check. Okay. Then at about 11:22, there's 3 minutes before the examination was about to be over, Jackson, the senior official, he calls Stephens, the new recruit, and tells him that the governor wanted to speak to him. Okay. Now a phone call, this was also something hanky-panky, because actually there was no call from the governor, and this time it was Jackson's foolishness not to recognize the voice, that it was not the governor's voice. So that was to pull the police official away from there. Okay. And he himself draws him away from the cell door, and he listens to the spoken orders. Then, and what were the orders? That Stephens had to accompany McCleary, the invigilator, out of the cell and leave him out till the main gate. Okay. So when he does go, when the exam is over, he does escort the invigilator out, and he notices that he has suddenly grown thinner. Now the reason I just told you that he was wearing, two sets of clothes, the double thing, that's why he was looking a little thinner. Okay. Now as Stephens walks back, he feels very, very happy, that he was the chosen one to take, escort the invigilator out. So he's feeling very pleased with himself. And then when he reached the D wing, that the recreation center and all was also there. When he reached the D wing, he just decided to take a peek into Evans' cell, and when he looks, he's in for a big surprise and shock, because there a man was sprawled on the chair, and his cropped hair, cropped is very, very short and cut very, very crudely, and splattered all over with blood. There was blood all over, and he was lying in that condition on that chair. And Stephens and Jackson, when he called out to him, and they both thought that it was McCleary, the invigilator, and he had been hit by Evans, and that Evans had actually escaped, and Stephens was the one who excuse me, Stephens was the one who had escorted him out. So they did not look carefully. Now, why had Evans chopped his hair like that? Because he wanted his hair to look like a parson's, short and things like that. And, he did not have a proper pair of scissors, because Jackson had already taken it away. So with the help of the razor, he had to chop his hair off, and that is why they were so untidy and they were looking so crudely hacked. Okay. So as a result, now what has happened inside is that McCleary, when he gives him the other set of, the clothes that he had to wear, and with the help of the blanket and the rubber tube, the inflated rubber ring, it had pig's blood inside, which they pierced and took out and splattered it all over. So the person sitting on the chair was actually Evans. It was actually Evans, okay? And they thought it was McLeary because they didn't check carefully, and they were so horrified and shocked by what they saw that, they just couldn't think beyond that, okay? So the wounded man in the cell, whom everybody thought to be McLeary, was actually Evans. And he tells the prison authorities not to worry about him. That don't worry about me. Now you must try to catch hold of Evans. And it's Evans actually speaking. And he draws the attention of the governor to the photocopied question paper. Okay, the original paper was blank, but a slip had been pasted over it. Okay, and there was a change in plan where he had to go, and all that correction had been made. Okay. Now, then these jail authorities, they take the help of the police, and Detective Superintendent Carter approaches McLeary, and he tells the superintendent he knows where Evans has gone. And he directs him to, to move the vehicle towards Elsfield Way. And the governor is, in a state of shock and surprise, and he tells the superintendent that to take McLeary wherever he wants to go, because he knows best to actually what all has happened. Then this governor takes the officers to task, both Jackson and Stephens, for having behaved foolishly, and calls them two morons, because he had not made that call, remember? So Jackson had made a mistake by not being able to identify or recognize the voice of the governor, and within that split second all that had taken place. So there was no violence as such, it was just blood splurted on top. Nobody had been hit or hurt that way. Okay, so this is all that happens, and then the governor looks down at the photocopied slip and he thinks of Newbury, and looking at it, a little bit of intelligence is used, and he's able to find out that actually Evans has to go to Newbury, okay, and the Golden Lion, the hotel there, okay. Then on being asked about McLeary, Carter tells that he had left him at Radcliffe Hospital. So after that, the governor calls up the Radcliffe Hospital, and he wants to find out about McLeary. And he is very surprised to know that that person is not there in the hospital, but he appears to have escaped. Then the governor has a brain wave, and he rushes to the residence, the house, the dwelling place of the actual, original Reverend McLeary, and he finds him bound and gagged, all tied up and gagged, and in his study. And then he realizes that all that had happened because somebody had come there at 8:15, had bound him, tied him, gagged him, and tried to pose as McLeary, and had reached the cell. Okay, so now once again we see that Evans is a free man after trying to break away thrice. Now once again he is a free man who's escaped from prison for the 4th time, okay. And then he has a good meal. He has he finishes with delicious fish and chips, and then he feels bad about the cutting of his long hair, but he was lucky that Jackson had allowed him to keep the bobble hat. Otherwise, his plan would not have worked. Okay, and then the McLeary's plan of wearing double minister's dress had also been very, very helpful, and had actually made their plan successful. So he's thinking about all these things, and when he enters the hotel room, he's very surprised to find the governor sitting on the bed over there. And then he comes to know how the governor had tried to add 2 and 2, and had tried to guess and gauge where he had gone, and that is why he had come there to actually arrest him once again. Now, heart of hearts, the governor was very he felt very proud of himself and very good about himself, that, he's been very clever, and about his ingenuity, that, how he had been able to locate the hotel and he had been able to catch hold of Evans. And then finally, Evans is brought out of the room and, handcuffed and all that, and then he's taken towards a vehicle. And, the governor again makes a big mistake. He does not accompany him in that vehicle. In fact, he just tells him that they would meet soon. So it was more like a farewell rather than kind of a warning to him, not realizing that the van that had come in to collect them was also a part of Avon's plan. And in fact, the driver who was there was basically the imposter, or the person who had come in as the invigilator. So the moment they are rid of the governor, the so-called prison officer, a friend of Evans, he unlocks the handcuffs and he asks the driver to move fast, and Evans tells him to turn to Newbury, and thus Evans has the last laugh. So that is all that the chapter is all about. Now, it's interesting to see how, criminals, they work on such meticulous grounds, and their plans are so well thought of and well organized that sometimes they give the authorities, a lot of trouble. And even today, as we see, when these terrorist attacks are made, and, though there is the intelligence in the country and there's so much of, so many agencies working, but still sometimes these criminals, they are two steps ahead of the main people, and how they can, befool them, and how they managed to, create a lot of terror or cause havoc, and, they really can be, in advance. So this is what the story is all about. So this is an account, the theme of the story. Basically, it is an account of a jailbreak by a criminal who has successfully broken jail thrice on earlier, occasions also. And this story gives us a glimpse of the mind of a criminal whose dexterity at manipulating and executing plans so perfectly and so accurately that they are able to befool, the authorities and the officials. And in a way, here also in this chapter, we do see that these officials, they secretly admire, Avon's ingenuity and sharpness for outwitting the police officials. So this is what it is. So if you have to deal with these kind of people, you have to think well, much more in advance, and only then can you just can't be, have weapons which are outdated, and you can't have the working pattern on old styles, because today, how it is, technology is so advanced that these people are really techno savvy, and they are creating havoc and ruining the lives of people without the slightest inclination on the part of the officials. So it talks about the dexterity of their execution and their manipulation and their planning and their strategies. So it gives us a glimpse or an insight into the mind of a criminal's planning. Then we come on to the message. The story, Evans Tries an O-Level, it conveys the message that presence of mind, a cool head, well-planned and well-turned moves can give an edge over the others. Okay, here also we saw that Evans had an edge over the others. At that time, when he pointed out at his bobble hat, he immediately said that it's his lucky charm. So presence of mind. even if you're very learned or something, but if you cannot, if you don't have presence of mind and you cannot act or react at the moment, then things can go wrong. So presence of mind to keep a cool head and not get flustered, but go about it in a calm manner, okay? And well planning and well turned moves can help you achieve things, And another thing is, never take your excuse me, never take your rivals or your opponents very lightly. Don't underestimate your rivals or your opponents, okay? It's very, very important. And one must be calm and composed in the sense, and not jump to hasty conclusions. Over there, immediately when he goes and see this man lying in a pool of blood like that, he jumped to hasty conclusion thinking that it is the invigilator, it is McCleary. But actually, if they had looked carefully, they would have analyzed that it is Evans, and so much of chaos and so much of disturbance wouldn't have taken place. They would have immediately got hold of him there only. So jumping to hasty conclusions, can really help out, and they can, can make you see what is obvious, okay? So the story also conveys the message that a multi-dimensional approach is very, very important while tracking tricky problems, and a quick wit, a ready wit adds spice to the entire scenario. Without these, small but very, very important, aspects, all our energy and all our endeavors will prove to be nothing and just a waste of time. So yes, intelligence and everything is required, training is required, everything is required, but more than that is your presence of mind, your coolness, your calmness, and not jump to hasty conclusions, and go about it slowly and meticulously. So that is the message which is given in the story. Now, coming to the character sketches, Evans is a quiet sort of a person basically, and he doesn't throw tantrums, or he does not believe in violence that way. And in the Oxford prison, he regularly participates in various functions, as we have seen. He's a little bit of an exhibitionist, and but basically he's a congenital kleptomaniac, okay? And he has been sent to jail on earlier occasions also, but this time he was in Oxford prison, okay? And because he has tried to run away thrice, he is also given the nickname of Evans the Break, okay? And at present, very cleverly, he thought of a plan to escape from prison by opting for an O-level German exam on the basis of the fact that he wanted to improve his qualifications, and he wanted to sit for this exam, okay? And there is something very magnetic about his personality, and this we can deduce that he has so many friends, not only outside, but even within the prison premises and various departments outside the prison. There were so many people who came to his help, and how it took them a few months to actually manage all that. But it was only because he had friends, and good friends, loyal friends. For him, they were good and loyal, even though they were partners in crime, but for him, they were loyal. Then, even because in the end, when the governor asked him that how could he manage, all this despite being in prison. So Evans himself, he admits that he has got a lot of friends, and he's capable of winning affection of the concerned people. So in the words of the author, the senior prison officer and Evans, they are warm enemies, as I had told you earlier. And he's called Little Einstein by Jackson. So the governor too is also appreciative of Evans' innovative mind. They couldn't help, admiring his smartness and his quickness and his innovative aspect. His presence of mind, and is quick-witted enough to think of the right answers at critical moments, okay? As I told you, with the bobble hat, he said it's his lucky charm, okay? And he is very, very capable of foreseeing things, and all the escape game that he has planned, he thinks way ahead of the prison authorities. Okay. And he believes in fighting right till the end, doesn't give up, okay, in between. And he actually leaves his adversaries as his enemies, his opponents. He leaves his adversaries totally vanquished. vanquished. Vanquished means defeated, completely defeated. And handing over the paper, deliberately they had handed over the paper, this was also a part of the plan, okay, to the governor. I mean, though it was taking a big risk, but still, it was worth appreciating, because he wanted to create that, yes, this is McCleary only. That is why he's talking about Evans, and that's why he's giving clues about Evans, okay. So, in short, we can say that Evans is a master genius, having potential enough to get over any obstacle in life. But the sad part is that he had taken to the wrong path. If he had taken to the right path and he had, done something constructive, I mean, he would have really been a genius. Okay. The next character we have is the governor. The governor of Oxford prison. He's an officer of average intelligence, but unfortunately he overestimates himself. He has a high opinion of himself, self-opinionated, and rather than taking extra precautions like bugging the cell and putting that microphone and all that, he should have actually tried to understand Evans and tried to see how his mind works, and try to foresee how he would go about and in what ways could he plan his escape. Okay. And so we can say that basically the governor is a poor judge of character. Okay. And the important matters which actually needed his personal attention, he left them to the others. Seeing McCleary checking off Evan's cell and escorting the so-called wounded McCleary needed the governor's personal attention, but he neglected them, and he directed the other officials to do that. And that was childish on his part to take for granted, Stephen's observation regarding the identity of the wounded person in the cell. I mean, just because Stephen said that, it is McCleary, he believed he should have come and checked himself, and he would have seen that it is not McCleary, but it is Evans. Okay. Knowing that Evans was such an intelligent, person, he should have examined him more closely, and then the truth would have been out. He fails to comprehend the gravity of the situation. Gravity of the situation means the seriousness of the situation. But let's not talk so much negative about him. The governor did have, streaks of intelligence, and when he deduced from the question paper in locating the hotel where Evans is supposed to lodge, and from the slip which he found in the cell. But here too he leaves the vital issues to others, because he should have actually accompanied him and not let him go in that van with somebody else without confirming whether it was a police van or whether it was a van which was authentic, and the person with whom he was sending him out, was he an authentic person from the prison or from the police side. So the vital issues he leaves, and that is where he makes a mistake. Okay, then we come on to the other person is Jackson. Jackson is the senior prison officer on the D wing in Oxford prison. He's not an intelligent person and can be easily taken in by others. He's not very strong or stern or adamant, and he's a poor judge of character, and he's not able to read between the lines, So while dealing with sharp-witted prisoners and people like Evans, he proves to be a total failure. And it is surprising when Evans tells him that the bobble hat is a lucky charm. He believed him and he allowed. Had he, at that point of time, looked into the details about this bobble hat, things would have become easier. Okay. And for a split second also, he did not think that long hair that Evans had cannot be hidden under a hat. But because he had long hair earlier, but he had cropped them and chopped them crudely. But then he was not very vigilant about it, very casual. Okay, he is basically not a doer, and he takes delight in giving orders to his subordinates. Like Stephens was a new recruit, so he would pass on the work to him. He keeps Stephens loaded with the orders and instructions, and takes things casually, as I said. His search of McLeary is a living example of his casualness. He has a tendency to get overexcited, and in his excitement he fails to notice the obvious and the reality. Okay, I mean, he could not even recognize the voice on the phone, that it was not the governor's voice, you know, when he had told Stephens that the governor wants to give you some instructions. Okay, so in sum total, it won't be wrong to say that he's also misfit as a prison officer. So that is all, I think. Now, I'll keep this as part 1 and the video, and part 2 I will do the question and answers with you, the short ones also and the details ones also. Okay, so that I'll have this video in 2 parts. So the explanation, the chapter and all this that I've done with you, that will be part 1, and in part 2 I will do the question and answers with you. Okay, so when you do this, please check out for both the parts of this chapter. So thank you very much for watching, listening. God bless you all.